Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Wednesday, January 29th, 2020. And here are our top stories: bad broker behavior, and we'll take a closer look at Delaware's retirement, pension plans, and a lot more. Well, joining me now to discuss this and a lot more is the Treasurer of Delaware, Colleen Davis. Treasurer Davis, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. It's a nice, cool, frigid day here in New York, and I suppose it is down where you are as well in the state of Delaware. So I wanted to, before we talk about the plan, I just wanted to kind of get your reaction to a recent state of Delaware Attorney General press release on some, I don't know how you want to rephrase it, but maybe some bad acting that was going on relating to the 402B plan. Any reaction to that?
Yeah, actually, we were pretty integrally involved in the process. Back in 2016, the state of Delaware transitioned its 403B plan from a multi-vendor format, which was fairly confusing for a number of individuals involved. And we rolled that into a single vendor platform. In doing that, we selected Voya as our record keeper, and we actually were able to roll the 403B as well as the 457B and the 401A plans together. Mm-hmm. The great thing about that was it allowed our educators to benefit from the pricing services that they weren't otherwise able to access. And again, the decision to consolidate to one record keeper took us quite some time, and at that time was considered a very bold move.
Yeah.
And in 2016, we were recognized by the retirement services industry in the Plan Sponsor magazine. We were actually selected as a finalist for Plan Sponsor of the Year.
Yeah.
And so we were really excited about doing this. Unfortunately, during that time, there was a broker-dealer that operates in Delaware by the name of Horace Mann Investors. They actually had a representative by the name of Dieter Hoffman, and he was engaged in some dishonest and unethical practices at that time, which were in direct violation of our Delaware Securities Act. And truly, he was taking unfair advantage of our educators as we were transitioning from that multi-vendor platform to Voya, and really sort of targeted them unfairly. It was brought to our attention by one of my staff, Dan Kimmel, who's really phenomenal, extremely passionate. And he actually found that one of his retired teachers was a target of this unfair practice, and became really passionate about it. I mean, he's passionate to begin with, but when he heard that she was being targeted in this extremely unethical way, he started to sort of look around for other potential targets. And that was when we were getting some more information and started to turn it over to the Department of Justice for continued investigation of the group, the Horace Mann Investors, but more specifically Dieter Hoffman. And it was really that champion from my office that helped to really raise that red flag, and in conjunction with the Department of Justice, that sort of brought this all to fruition. And we're hopeful that we don't see this kind of practice continue, and really hopeful that we're making a statement that we're not going to accept this type of performance and or unethical treatment of our teachers.
Yeah, it's certainly disappointing. And from my reading of the press release, it sounds like this individual was convincing people not to participate in the 402B, even though you had done all of that great work and the administration prior to yours to oversee the plan and get it to this point. And he was getting people to enroll into an IRA as opposed to realizing the benefits in the 403B. Obviously very disappointing, but I got to think that that's one bad actor in a sea. I mean, there are many people throughout the state who are positive actors, I would think, in support of what you are trying to achieve with the plan.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. We have a very strong finance arm here that big contribution to our overall GDP or GSP. And so, it's really fantastic when we're able to sort of identify that one outlier that's doing this type of thing,
Yeah.
and really kind of rectify the situation. I will say it was an exhaustive RFP process. They did a lot of really wonderful work in setting up this plan through Voya, and they negotiated fees, into the late hours of the evening to ensure that we get the best rates and we get the best plan for not only our teachers but all of our state employees. And it feels like a big win when you go through an RFP process like that. But when you find that there are some people who rightfully, or wrongfully sometimes made a different choice, when you can identify that, one, we did the best we could, and two, we've helped people to get back on track and to avoid this type of unethical targeting. So it was a big win all around.
Yeah, and lower the fees. I mean, that is what you're talking about, and winning Plan Sponsor of the Year, or at least being recognized as a Plan Sponsor of the Year in the public sector by Plan Sponsor magazine. I mean, these are bold steps, especially in the public arena where many 403B plans still have multi-vendors. And when you have a multi-vendor structure, you don't always get those economies of scale that you're talking about. You may have different share classes of investments across the different vendors. And so what you're actually able to do through this process is create parity, and ultimately the person who benefits the most is the participant in the plan. Yep. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, I mean, it was a big success all around. And as I said, one of the things that I wanted to really sort of highlight is our amazing staff. I mean, we had two individuals, as I said, Dan Kimmel, and our other was a gentleman by the name of Mike Green. And the two of them have been extremely passionate about ensuring that everyone is retiring securely from state employment, and again, that we're getting those best rates and fair treatment. So yeah, it was a great success, and we're still sort of trying to highlight that hard work that they've been dedicated to. And the Department of Justice has been really fantastic in helping us to resolve these investigations and trying to hold accountability.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, it's certainly hard. I mean, you think about these plans have tens of thousands of individuals. There are people, whether they're working for the record keeper or they're doing, they're financial advisors, maybe trying to do things that are serve their interest. This is obviously a very important topic, not only for the state of Delaware, but also states throughout the United States, or throughout the United States. I think people will certainly take a look at what you've done and really benchmark themselves against that in terms of enforcing policy. Treasurer, I want to take a brief break. When we come back, we'll talk to Treasurer Davis a little bit more about retirement, but also about what's going on in her office, for example, with 529 plans. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. We're talking to Treasurer Colleen Davis of the state of Delaware. Treasurer Davis, thanks so much for staying with us this morning.
Thank you.
So really amazing work being done by the team at Delaware and Voya and whatnot, the team that supports the state's retirement plan. But there's a lot going on, I would assume, I don't want to presume, but I assume there's a lot going on in the Treasurer's office with not only retirement and the defined contribution plan, but perhaps the pension plan and even the 529 plan. Do you want to talk about some of the initiatives that you're working on within Delaware?
Sure. I would actually just sort of start because it's timely by talking about our recent bond sale, which went out to bid yesterday. And we are a AAA rated state. And so our municipal bonds are selling like hotcakes, which is great. And generally we've, I would say last year, when I look at our municipal bond sales, we had a $15.5 million savings in the competitive bid. So last year, we put out our bonds for competitive sale and had not done that in most recent years. And so that change was a very successful decision. And being one of the bond issuing officers here in the state, it was sort of a great conversation to pioneer, to make that change. So it was a great success. We want to kind of continue down that path, maintain our AAA rating, and that's another thing that's sort of on our radar is ensuring that we keep that AAA rating.
And that's certainly an issue, not necessarily with the state of Delaware, but maintaining that AAA rating is important for borrowing purposes. I know that you have the rating agencies. Maybe I don't know if they come into the office, but S&P, AM Best, and others, I think they kind of review what's going on and they give their own independent rating, and that's important for many purposes, for a lot of different reasons. Yes,
absolutely. And last year, when we saw Vermont lose their AAA rating and when they were downgraded, one of the things that were highlighted by Moody's was their large retiree population, and just sort of as a general negative. And our landscape, our population landscape, looks very similar to Vermont. And again, we were concerned that there was potential that we would be downgraded. And thankfully, given a lot of what we do to maintain our debt and to ensure that we don't take on too much debt, as well as some of the other governance structures that we have in place, we have a very strong fiscal outlook. And so we've been able to maintain that AAA rating despite some of the challenges that we've faced. And so, as I said, it's been a big success and a really, really wonderful thing. And like I said, because we went out yesterday, it's sort of an exciting time. And then some of the other things that we've been doing, we've got a very strong cash management policy board, and some of the influence that I was able to have in that cash management policy board was to adjust the way that we invest our reserves, which resulted in an increase to the tune of $24.5 million return on our investment. And the reason that that's great is that sounds small for most states, but for Delaware, that's really wonderful. And this year, our projections are in the $40 million range. So
Wow.
we're doing very well. We're
Yeah,
doing very well.
it sounds like it. If you're going from $24 million saved to $40 million saved, I think that's amazing. And I think the people of Delaware need to know that, or probably appreciate knowing that money saved is potentially going back into the state's pockets, but also save them as well.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons that we're able to maintain such a great tax rate, and also fulfill all of our obligations. And so that's been really phenomenal. One of the other things that we've done, just from my office standpoint, has been to look at some of the ways that we're engaging with the community. And I spoke with several individuals. I actually, in the state of Delaware, the treasurer has the pleasure of sitting on the board of pardons. And so we hear a lot of pardons cases. And along with the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state, one of the chancellors, and our auditor. So in any case, in hearing a lot of these cases, we hear about how individuals are walking through reform and what that actually looks like, and how they actually get back into the community to become members of society, productive members of society. And I spoke with a gentleman who had been incarcerated and said, I got my first paycheck. I knew what I was going to make. And when I saw that it was less than what I had expected, I was ready to get into a fist fight with my boss because I thought he was stealing money from me. He'd never had a job before, didn't understand the concept of taxes. And so one of the things that we did was, after a conversation with he and several others, we recognized that there is this opportunity to create a space for some of our community providers to kind of, as people are walking through that transition back into society, to utilize a tool that's readily available. And so we developed the Available Income Calculator. And what it does is it helps to break down what you can expect to be paid through your earnings, what type of taxes ought to be taken out based on your adjustments and your dependents and things like that. And then it helps you to break out what you should be expecting to spend on things like food, clothing, rent. It'll even break it down to your zip code. So it's very, very actionable information, and it's been a real success. We've talked to nurses who are setting aside money to put a down payment on their mortgage. And it's been really phenomenal. And it's sort of just the beginning of many folks participating in with our office and a lot of our outreach.
Yeah. And I would say, one of the things that presumably you've talked about internally with the retirement plan is financial literacy. That's a big buzzword, and that's something that the industry is talking about. It sounds like this is a step in that direction, although you're helping people who are maybe just stepping out of incarceration and kind of being productive members of society. But it sounds like this can be applied in so many different places within the state to the community for people to really become engaged and learn more about these principles that are important and tenets to being financially independent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's been really wonderful. And you mentioned retirement. Some of the things that we're working on include our deferred compensation plan for our state employees and our 529 plan, as well as our ABLE plans. So the ABLE accounts, I don't know how much information you have on them and your audience has, but they're essentially accounts for individuals with disabilities, and it allows them to set aside money for future costs that doesn't necessarily cause them to lose their benefits, their SSI benefits and things like that. And I've talked to so many people who've said that things like, this has been a game changer. It's allowed people to afford the items that are very crucial. I can't tell you how many parents I've talked to who've said, we've needed this particular assistive device, like an upgrade in a wheelchair, but we can't apply for it, or insurance won't cover it, or they'll cover just a certain percentage. And these accounts help to pay for things like that, and has really created true quality of life for individuals. So it's been really great. We've grown quite a bit. I'd love to see us growing more and utilizing them more. And Delaware is part of a consortium of other states. We pool those resources, and helps to make us more efficient and give the best product possible to all of our constituents.
Yeah, well, and certainly, we've been following the ABLE provisions, and we often talk about children with special needs on our program, which is a very important topic, and you hit on that in terms of the ABLE plan. Well, Treasurer, I want to thank you so much on behalf of the audience for appearing with us this morning, and best of luck to you and the team on the retirement. Congratulations on the bond issuance, and we will talk to you all very, very soon.
Thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. I hope you found it educational and enjoyable as well. Hey, have a financial topic or someone of interest that you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement, markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
But if you're tired of the same